Hey there, investors. My name is Devin Moreno, and today we're going to be doing one of my Zoom chat series episodes. So, for those of you who are new to the channel, I actually cover all things real estate and a lot of finances and entrepreneurship going forward. But I actually provide essentially 30 minutes of free mentorship in the form of these Zoom chats, where one of you can reach out to me in the email in the description of this video, and you can talk to me and my partner, Austin Carroll. And we generally talk about real estate as of right now. So, I own 9 properties, manage 11 more, and Austin owns 68 units in the Baltimore City area. So, and in Maryland area as well. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to me. Absolutely feel free. Today we're going to be talking about draw schedules. Now, draw schedules with contractors. How exactly do we do it? Because a lot of you are probably getting these, like, oh, when it's 33% done, give me this much. And when it's 50%, give me this much money from the contractors. I'm going to let you know, spoiler alert, that's all BS. That's not how you want to pay your contractor, because what exactly is 50% anyway? So we're going to show you the right way to actually do that. And we're also going to be talking about financing and how that relates to paying your contractor on time, every time, especially if you have draw schedules from a hard money lender as well, where they give you the money in installments. So let's get right into it, where we talk to Keith about draw schedules and financing for contractors.
All right, Keith, what's going on? Thanks for joining us. You had some questions about draw schedules. Am I
I
correct?
did. Yes,
Cool.
I did.
All right, let's hear it.
So, um, I guess the main question was, well, one of the questions that really popped up into my head earlier today, I was looking at an estimate. What is a good percent to put down or to give to a contractor for the first phase for your first draw? And the reason why I asked, like I said, I got an estimate back this morning. So as I'm reading, the guy's estimate on the bottom, he says, you need upfront 30% of the estimate. I did the math, that was close to like 28, 29,000. And speaking to some other, people, other contractors, you hear like 10%. So my immediate question is, what would be a good percent to put down for your first drawer when you're dealing with contractors?
Yep.
So Austin actually has a ton of experience working with contractors on this. How do you like? What's your?
Yeah. So there's going to definitely be a lot of factors that come into this. You talked about a number that is very typical, which is 30%. A lot of contractors will be that. However, it sounds like your renovation is maybe 70, 80K. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it was, I want to say 95, maybe 98, either or 95 or 98. So when I did the math, like I said, it was around 28,000.
Cool. Okay. So if it's a new contractor, some of there's going to be a couple considerations here. One is going to be, is this a contractor you've worked with, or do you trust the sources that they came from? The worst case scenario is you pay a contractor, they don't do the work. You pay a contractor, they're really slow, and you have to rehire somebody. And that first draw is what everybody's always hesitant about, because that's generally where they're either going to take your money and run, or when they're going to start the work. So that first draw, and I think this is one thing that a lot of people don't necessarily know with contractors. In your negotiations with them, you're negotiating a lot of different things. You're negotiating how long it's going to take them to do the work. You're negotiating the price, which is where most people end. And you're going to negotiate how they get paid. Now, from their standpoint as well, you might be a new investor. They've probably gotten burned before, where they've done work and then not been reimbursed. And so, you want to find a good kind of balance there. And so if it's somebody that number one, I always like to make my own draw schedules. And a draw schedule, so as Devin was alluding to earlier, for those of you who don't know, it's basically just your terms of payment. So say you've got an $80,000 project and you're going to break it into 4 payments of $20,000. And then you want to make sure there's a very clear thing to be done in order for them to get the next draw. So for example, that first draw, maybe be and here's what I usually try to do, Keith, is I try to give them less upfront, but I will give them a quicker draw. So let's say, okay, I'll give you 10% upfront to get started, but as soon as we're done demo, I'll give you that other 20% to get you at 30%. Like something like that. And if you just kind of make sure, and I always like to chunk it up smaller, so I'd rather do 8 draws than 3 draws. But I always want them tied to something. And if you can tie it to an outside inspection, it's always helpful, because sometimes there's like a, question mark of like, oh, did we hit this thing? For example, all fixtures are in. Well, my tile's not done yet and my shower fixture is not in, but all my other fixtures are in, meaning like faucets and toilets and stuff like that. Is that an ambiguous kind of mark, or is that something that is a little bit more like hard and fast? I always love to, for example, if I'm getting inspections on stuff, I will give you your next draw when you've got my rough-in inspection for electrical, HVAC, and plumbing. Or maybe I'm like, HVAC and plumbing are done, and then electrical is the next draw, or whatever it might be. So that's kind of how I like to do it. In terms of like the negotiations, I like to be like 10 to 15% max up front. And I've gotten, for me, with most of my contractors now, I'm comfortable enough that they're comfortable enough that they usually start the work prior. We've kind of negotiated, hey, I'm going to give you, $25 per board of drywall and $1 per square foot of flooring laid, and they just kind of go do it and we even up on it later. But for those new contractors, I would say dropping it to 10, 15%. But set them another, like get them to their 30%, but just do it in smaller chunks to make sure that you're comfortable with it. Does that make sense?
It makes plenty of sense.
I personally do not like paying contractors 33% upfront of 30%, as you mentioned. It is common. I'm not going to say it's not common, but I feel uncomfortable with it, having been burned actually twice, where, I paid a contractor and they ran on me. This is obviously earlier in my, stages, but now, yeah, I will say that as you build those relationships with the contractors, it's now extremely common for them to almost like do like a third of the work without even being paid yet. And so sometimes I don't even have a first draw. So that does go away over time, but it does require that communication and that faith between you and the contractor. And that's only usually built after some working with them for a little bit. And I also like what Austin said, for those of you who heard, is tying it to a permit. Because if you tie it to something that is out of their control, then it's like there's no negotiation about whether or not it was done or not. This person did not say it was done, so therefore, you're not going to get paid that. Exactly. Right. There's no whether or not it was or not. So obviously, if you're not doing permits and stuff, like let's say you're doing a smaller renovation, then you can usually tie it to, okay, when the flooring's done or whatnot. But as it does just get tricky, as Austin just mentioned.
And Keith, can you see my my screen here?
I can see it. I can. Like I said, I'm on my phone, so it's hard for me to see the words, but I can see it. Yes.
Okay, and it's showing you like a spreadsheet kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one of my spreadsheets. This is something else that I learned early in my career. Because when I originally started, I started working under an architect, and he showed me something called the architectural divisions, which if you look right here, the area that I'm highlighting here, it's basically when an architect is doing, and this is really meant for really big projects. So think about, somebody building a hospital or something, a large apartment building. This is a good way to kind of break it down, and it's kind of stuck with me. And so I typically will make a draw schedule based off of something like this. And so you can kind of see here, this is my summary here. This is a project that I was actively working on a while ago. So I had estimated and then actual, here. And what's nice is that when we have a breakdown like this, I know how much I'm paying for different stuff. So I know my HVAC is $3,000. My plumbing's, or if I'm looking at my actual, it's going to be a little bit more here, more about $7,000 in each of those. And I can start to see those breakdowns. And then I know what I can start to put in different divisions. And so in draw schedules, a lot of times people will just use these arbitrary numbers, 30%, whatever it might be. And when you're trying to decide what is going to be the thing that I will pay you your next draw on, you want to make sure that it's covering as much money as you're paying, if that makes sense. So you don't want to give 30% right now and then give 30% at the completion of rough-ins, because then you're going to be 60% into the project and maybe you're only 30% of the way in at that point. You don't have any drywall, you don't have any flooring, anything like that. And so that's where I would kind of break this down and say, okay, at, let's just say 25% of the way through the project, you should be done your rough-ins for all of these. So maybe I'll give you half of all of your plumbing, HVAC, and electrical. And let's say you've done the windows, at that point you should have been done the windows. So, we'll go ahead and pay you for that. You've gotten insulation in the walls, so we'll go ahead and pay you for that. And you've done all your framing, so I'm going to pay you for that. So that's how a lot of times I like to put it together and tie it to, okay, when all of these things are done, you get the next draw.
Right. Okay.
And the more you can kind of do that, the better. And if somebody is having a big pushback on that, then either one, they're just not used to doing it that way and they've never done it that way. And so you can kind of spin it to this is almost a growth thing for you to do, for us to do together, for you to become a better contractor. Or two, they were planning to take your money and don't want to do that.
Right.
So I want to add on to this as I don't know if you can take it off this spreadsheet, but basically to add on to this, sometimes you're going to sub out all the work yourself. So with these big draws, like the 80,000 you were talking about, that's probably means you're hiring a general contractor.
Right.
So they're going to do the whole project for you. But for anyone who actually wants to do it themselves, when you sub it out, you can actually still use Austin's formula for their subs. So let's say you have an HVAC contractor. Well, you can give them, let's say the whole job is $7,000. Well, you can give them that 10% or such upfront just to get the materials. Once they get started, then you can pay them the other half of that 10%. So, let's say $1,000 and another $1,000. And then, once the rough-in is complete and you have a rough-in permit inspection completed, then you give them that second draw, and then you only give them the third draw when the final inspection is completed. And you can do that with every single trade, assuming there's permits involved. If not, then some of them can be pretty obvious. If you have your guys who are doing all the finishings, you can just say, once again, when the flooring's in or whatnot. And so you can break it up with every single contractor this way. So.
Got you. So when you guys are doing your rehabs, are you guys using lenders, or are you guys have your own private funding? Because I know I hear you mention a lot about private funding and partnering with different people. So
most of our, or at least the ones I've worked with Austin, I'll let him speak on his own. Austin owns 68 units, so he has a lot more than I have worked with one.
Right.
But for all my properties, as you know, and as we're seeing on the channel, I've said I had no money starting out. So it was either lenders or I just wasn't investing in real estate. So everything for me is all private lended, or you can in a sense say hard money lended as well to my projects. So Austin, has anything been different for you?
Yeah, I've probably used every different lending source out there, from your hard money to your raising private money from friends and family to buying just with a conventional loan, your normal, go to your mortgage broker and get something and renovate it, to community bank sources, to home equity lines of credits that are used, a little bit of everything. So there's a lot of different funding sources. Yeah.
So when you use hard money lending and you're dealing with contractors, does the hard money lender come out and check on the work prior to cutting the check for the drawer?
Totally.
That's what we're trying.
It totally depends on the hard money lender. So you're just talking about checking on the worth prior to the draw. So giving you another installment of payment. All of my hard money lenders have given me the money up front. They just gave it all, and they just all right, I'll buy the house. Here's your money for the renovation. And that's kind of how they worked with it. Now, they didn't give 100% of the renovation money, which is probably why they felt comfortable doing that. And then I funded the rest with private money. But every hard money lender is different and depends on your experience as well. The more experienced you are, the more you sound, probably competent with them in the conversation. They're probably going to be more lenient with you. But I mean, Austin, has your experience been different?
Yeah, I mean, your experience, Devin, is actually more atypical. Most of the time, people are going to fund it with a hard money lender. So let's just use a theoretical project. Let's say you're buying something for $100,000, and let's say you're putting $50,000 into it. The majority of the time, and again, this is going to depend very much on the hard money lender, but most hard money lenders that are really reputable and aren't just a guy lending out his own money are going to have some sort of systems, and they're not going to be super flexible in those systems because that's what they use with everybody. And so typically they'll give you some sort of payment up front. So you'll need to put a certain percent down. So sometimes it's 0% down if the after repair value is good enough and they have a big enough spread there, meaning that, let's say the same scenario, let's say the house is worth $250,000 afterwards. That's a fantastic deal. That's got you, 100K of profit before you put in your soft costs. But that's a really good deal. They'll probably lend the whole $150,000 that you need in that case, especially if you have some experience and things like that. So they'll give you the 100 grand to give to the seller up front, and then they'll give you $50,000, but usually they hold that back into an account. And so you have to have some of your own cash in order to start the contractor, exactly like you just said. So, you've got so in this scenario, let's just say the hard money lenders paid $100,000 up front. They've got $50,000 sitting in an account, and they're only going to give you that money after the work's been done. Now, how that is proved to them differs with every hard money lender. Some of them will actually come out to the site. A lot of times they'll charge you for every time they will come out to a site. So let's say, it's $100 to $200 per inspection, where they're going to send somebody out there. They're going to look through, they're going to take pictures. They're going to say, yes, this much stuff is done. Go ahead and pay that much stuff. And they're going to use your budget based off of it. So if you said windows were $5 grand and windows are done and you're asking for $8 grand, well, then they're only going to give you $5 grand based off your budget. Usually that is how they work. And then based off of that, a lot of times you can set the draw schedule numbers for them too. So if you want to pay for 10 inspections, you can get 10, small draws if you want. And that just depends on your relationship with a hard money lender. Others will take your own pictures, or they'll take an invoice from if you've already paid your contractor. If you just give them an invoice, that might work for them as well. So it kind of depends on that, but usually that's how that's working, is you're going to be paying them afterwards. In Devin's scenario, what he did was he would purchase or put a large amount down up front, and then have the hard money lender for a smaller portion of that. So they felt comfortable just giving all the money up front because Devin had so much money in the deal already. So that's how that's a little bit different. And it's one of the big differentiators between hard money and private money. So private money is where you're just going out and raising the money yourself versus going to an established business that's doing that. And that's one of the biggest differences, is with private money, you get all your money up front and you hold it. And then you're paying interest on the money that you're holding, versus with hard money, you're paying interest on the money that they're still holding. Which is always a little.
That's why I'm glad that he is here, because my experience has not been all of the complication that he just mentioned. So, but yeah, I mean, so much of the money that I've been able to use has been the combination of that hard money lender plus private money, that I haven't had to do all the stuff that he mentioned. But yes, most of the typical stuff is going to be what he said.
Got you. Yeah, I was just trying to tie together, how I can determine when to pay on a draw schedule. You said, I think you mentioned earlier about having like a set with like a monument, kind of like, I guess, like a monument, either a certain percentage of the work is done, or certain items are done or completed. And I was just trying to figure out, how does the lender, if you're using a hard money lender, how would they be able to know, what percent is completed, or what jobs in the house were completed, and how would they know to disperse the money?
Yep. Yeah, usually it's through photos or an inspector there. Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
And you want to incentivize the contractor to do the work in the
draws of the.
Yeah, like if you tell them, hey, I'm going to pay you when the windows are done, and you want windows done right away, you put that in your first draw schedule. Whereas if you don't care about windows being done until later, then do that later. But you're going to want to like get the outside looking nice, especially if it's like a flip or something, because you want to be able to put a sign in the yard and say like, hey, we're going to be selling this soon.
Yeah.
And so those are the types of things that you want to do, is you want to incentivize them through your draw schedule to do the things that you want done first done. And then there's things that just will naturally happen, right? You're going to get all your electrical, HVAC, and plumbing done before you're going to close in the walls, right? So so those are the types of things.
Got you. So I'm assuming that could also work with, if you have your estimate and you're saying, well, for demo and framing is going to cost X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
And that's going to be like the first phase. So I'll just pay you whatever it costs for demo. Yeah, and framing, and that'll be the first phase, and kind of going like that. And then the second phase would be, or the second drawer would be whatever's next. Sheetrock or whatever the case may be. Right. Roughing.
Once you actually watch the video yourself, actually, once we upload this, you can probably look from, instead of your phone, from a computer, and you can see those phases, that architectural phases that Austin mentioned earlier. You can see, like, and then you can break it up how you feel is fit, like in that.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking that because just trying to determine how much money you're going to pay in each drawer. And I think for me, the easiest way for me to do it or to think about it is, okay, well, if you do, ABC, and ABC costs, X amount of dollars, that could be phase one, the first drawer. Because I've seen some people say percent, they pay if a percent of the house is completed. Well, how do I know, what percent that is?
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't like that method either. I would say, like, I think what Austin mentioned about breaking up that third, if you're doing it by thirds, just recapping everything as we're closing to the end of this video here, break that in half. And then just when they start demo, it doesn't even really cost them any money to demo anything anyway. So it's like, they shouldn't need it for anything, but, break that in half. And then, that's a good faith payment of, hey, look, I'll pay you for the work. And then, once you've broken that in half, the other ones are pretty easy. Rough-in, once that's completed, hopefully based on permits. If you're using a general contractor, they're probably getting permits anyway, especially for an $80,000 job. And number two, then the final payment on the final finished product. And if you're using a hard money lender, then you can align it more with when the hard money lender gives you your distribution. So that's probably the best. And obviously, I think your main concern is the first payment. And that's where it's like, make it as small as possible. But as Austin mentioned, make it quicker for that first third, we'll call it, that first third, make it quicker payments. So that way everyone feels comfortable with what's going on.
Got it. All right. That's definitely helpful. I also read somewhere where you can align the drawer payments with, I guess, the work that's done. So there's no gap in between the work being done and the actual payment coming in. Does that ring a bell to you guys? So for example, if someone does phase two and completed with phase two, but I didn't have the inspector come in until maybe like a week after phase two was done. And so that there's like a dead period in between when the work was completed until when the drawer has actually been sent and the payment has actually been made. So I was reading somewhere where you kind of just want to make sure that you schedule things with the inspector and the drawers, kind of like in a timely fashion with the work being done. Does that make?
You're talking about advanced scheduling of like, all your inspectors or anything that needs to be done. You're talking about like lining it up so that way, as soon as your demo guys are done, boom, your framers are in there. And as soon as your framers are in there, boom, your HVAC guys are in there. And like,
do you mean the bank inspector?
Right, the bank inspector. So that way the drawer is is in time or in line with the work.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you're giving them an idea of when you're, and usually they're on top of you. If you say, hey, I should be done at the end of next week.
Right, exactly.
And again, this depends on your hard money lender. I've worked with hard money lenders that will pay the day of, like they've got a system down, like you're good. So it's very quick. I've also heard of lenders that will take 2 weeks to get back to you. So that's a question you're going to want to make sure you're asking your hard money lender when they say, when you say, hey, when I submit like, hey, I'm done this work, how long does it take you to get payment done?
Okay, got it.
And some of them, again, will like, if they're like local guys, a lot of times they'll be like, next day we got somebody out there. We're going to give you those funds same day kind of thing. But that's a good question. That's a conversation you're going to want to have when you're interviewing hard money lenders.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much on my end, man. That's pretty much it. From the drawer schedule,
Well, hopefully this answered all your questions about that. Keep in mind that if you have any more questions, and anyone who's actually watching this, Austin's actually a realtor. So if you end up wanting to work with him, his team, the Blue Key team,
happy. Shoot me an email, acarroll, 2 R's and 2 L's at kw.com. Or you can also check us out on our website, bluekeyteam.com. Also Facebook, if you check out the Blue Key Team, you will see all of our stuff in there. We do lots of seminars and stuff. We should have some investor seminars coming up. Right now, we mostly do first-time home buyer and seller seminars, but got some other stuff coming up. So yeah, any questions, feel free to reach out.
And obviously, in the future, if you want to know the Zoom call and you have other new questions, then hey, reach out to me. Obviously, the email you obviously did, and we can get this all over the YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Now, do you have a template that you use, or that you can send to people who may be interested in doing drawer schedules? Kind of similar to, I guess,
I don't
budget.
I don't personally have a template or anything like that I can give out. I don't know if you have a template on draws.
I have lots of different versions. I don't really have a finalized one. A lot of times, a hard money lender is going to have one for you.
Okay.
So, for example, there's one hard money lender that I use that they've actually got like 30 different items in there. And exactly how we were just talking, they do a great job of like, hey, this is done, this is done, this is done, and you just fill it out in the spreadsheet. This is how much this is. So when they come out, they're like, okay, check, check, check. Those are done. That's halfway done. We'll pay you this much, kind of thing.
Got it. Sounds good.
All right, Keith.
Well, yeah, this was informative. I appreciate you guys, fellas.
Yep. Absolutely. Thanks, Keith.
We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.